Good morning, everyone. I am Francesco Sgrò and I am an associate professor of sport pedagogy at the University of Enna. From the July of 2021, I became a member of the International Advisory Board of the Teaching Games for Understanding community as the Italian representative. In this respect, it's a pleasure for me to stay in this conference for presenting a summary of the activities I developed in these years for supporting the use of game-based approaches in my country and for presenting some about the future studies I'm working on. In Italy, games and sport-related learnings are mandatory from the first level of school, but to the best of my knowledge, the use of specific teaching methods of physical education model is really limited. At the same time, in youth sport, coaches sometimes use modified games during their training session because they follow indications provided to them by their respective sport federation. But they use these modified games in an isolated way because they not follow a specific model for designing and delivering their training session. As a consequence, the level of attention on the previous cited learnings are very low, and the number of young players who leave youth sports because they are not feel good or they do not enjoy during training session are growing in the last years. A possible solution to overcome this problem could be to promote the use of adequate approaches for teaching or for training these elements in school or youth sport context. Therefore, I developed a sort of SWOT analysis about this situation, and I have identified the following needs and opportunities. About the needs, for me, training and support in application of these models during university studies is necessary, and at the same time is necessary to propose professional development for in-service teachers and coaches about these approaches. For what concerns the opportunities, I identified two different opportunities. The first, from 2022, physical education are taught by an expert in physical activity and sports also in primary school students, in primary school. And the second, the number of coaches who choose to work with youth players and with specific knowledge in physical activity and sports sciences is growing. So the current Italian scenario seems to be good for supporting the use of game-based approaches. So, with the aim to start to make some changes in the current Italian scenario, I'm working on three different activities. First, teach game-based principles and the tactical games model in my university course. Second, develop research studies about the use of tactical games model. Third, disseminate the use of these approaches in all the way are possible. In the next slides, I will present to you some elements of each one of these actions. For what concerns the first action, I teach in my university courses tactical games model, and I support my students to develop, to design and deliver tactical games model-based lesson or training session. In the slide, you can see two different images about this process. On the left, you have an image related to the lesson where my students organized the gym for teaching net games skills to primary school students as a simulation. You can say they organized the gym by means of small-sided games approach and used adapted equipment for supporting a learning process related to primary school students. They use very low nets and a soft balls. On the right, you can say the same students that organized another sport context for train middle and youth school students in a volleyball training session. Again, they used small-sided games for organizing the context. They use adapted instruments for simulate the nets. The height of the nets was higher in the second situation than in the first, and they use regular volleyball balls. So these are images that show how we are working in Italy for supporting the use of these approaches during university courses. The second action is related to the research. During the last years, my research team and I have developed several studies for assessing the effect of the tactical games model on psychomotor and affective domain of learnings. In these slides, I will show to you the results about some of these studies. In the current slide, I will present the results of a study where we delivered a tactical games model-based plan to elementary school students for teaching volleyball concepts and skills. The design of this study was a longitudinal, and the participants were divided into two groups according to their initial skill level. The plan was long 12 weeks, and the effects of this plan were assessed by means of the team sports assessment procedure. 3 assessments were performed: before the plan began, at the end of the plan, and after the summer vacation. Results showed significant and large improvements in all the indexes for lowest skilled students, and a negative effect on all these indexes for related to the summer vacation. In this slide, I will present to you the results related to a study where we assessed the effects on affective domain of learnings of 2 different physical education plans in elementary school students. A quasi-experimental pre-post intervention design with a non-equivalent control group was used in this study. The second grade classes of a primary school in the south of Italy were randomly assigned to two different groups. The first group followed a regular physical education plan. The second group followed a plan developed according to the tactical games model. Both the plans were delivered from the same teacher. In the slide you can see the results of this study, where we assessed the level of enjoyment as a proxy of affective domain learnings. The black bar in the graphs showed the results related to the tactical games model group. In the left, we can see the results of pre-assessment. The positive scores of tactical games model group were lower in the pre-assessment than in the post-assessment, how you can see in the second graph. While the negative score of the tactical games model group were higher in the pre-assessment than the ones in the post-assessment. The differences between these assessments were large and significant. The same trend was found for what concerned the differences about positive and negative score of control group in pre and post assessments, but these differences were not significant. The third action I'm developing in these years was disseminate and promoting the use of tactical games model in Italy. I identified a main obstacle for Italian coaches and Italian physical education teachers to use tactical games model, that is the lack of materials in Italian language. In this respect, I started to publish some papers in journal in Italian language, and I was in several Italian congress and conference for promoting where physical education and sport coaches were involved, for promoting the results of my studies about the use of tactical games model. I'm developing another activity that is I started a relation with local sport team for presenting to their coaches the tactical games model and for supporting them in the development of training session by means of this approach, and I support them with my students and my PhD students in this action. I complete my presentation by sharing with you some references about our latest publication, and I will be very happy to reply to each request for information I will receive. In this respect, I will share with you some of my contacts, and I hope we can discuss about common research project today in the conference or in the future. Thank you very much for your attention.